A few weeks ago, the most important crypto bill in America was on track to pass. Prediction markets gave it a 74% chance. Today, that number has fallen to 48%, a coin flip. And the entire thing is now stuck on a single section of text that most XRP holders have never even heard of. This is the bill that could change XRP's legal status in the United States permanently. And right now, it is on life support. But here is what the price chart is not telling you. The single biggest catalyst for XRP this year is not a chart pattern. It is a vote, and that vote is in trouble. So the real question this week is not, where is XRP's price going? The real question is this just a temporary delay, or is the one catalyst XRP holders have been waiting years for about to slip away? That is what we are going to break down today, calmly, with the facts. No hype, no spin, just what is actually happening in Washington and what it means for XRP. Quick note before we go further. Nothing in this video is financial advice. This is one read of the public record and the legislative process. What you do with it is your decision, your timeline, and a conversation with a professional who knows your situation. This channel gives you the calm read. The rest is yours. Here is the plan. First, what the Clarity Act actually is, and why XRP specifically needs it. Then, how close this bill got to passing. Then, exactly where it stalled and why. Then the deadline that changes everything, and the two scenarios from here. And finally, the three things you need to watch next. Let's get into it. This is XRP verified. Start with the bill itself, because if you understand this one idea, everything else makes sense. The Clarity Act is what is called a market structure bill. In plain English, it answers one simple but enormous question. Who regulates crypto in the United States? Is it the SEC, the agency that polices securities like stocks? Or is it the CFTC, the agency that oversees commodities like gold and oil? For XRP, the answer matters more than almost anything else. Because the Clarity Act would classify XRP as a digital commodity, placing it under the CFTC, the clearer, more predictable regulator. And that is the difference between XRP living in a legal gray zone and XRP having a permanent, defined home in US law. Now, you might be thinking, didn't Ripple already win its case against the SEC? Yes, that fight is over, and regulators have informally started treating XRP as a commodity already. But here is the key. An agency position can change with the next administration. A law does not. Clarity would lock that commodity status into legislation, the kind of certainty that institutions managing billions of dollars need before they fully commit. That is why this bill is the real catalyst, not a price target, a framework. Hold that thought, because it is what makes the next part matter so much. Here is what most people don't realize. This was not a long shot. This bill got close. Back in July of last year, the Clarity Act passed the House of Representatives, and not by a narrow margin. The vote was 294 to 134. That is strong, bipartisan support. Then, in May of this year, it cleared the Senate Banking Committee, 15 to 9, another step forward. And on June 1st, it was placed on the Senate legislative calendar in position number 423. In simple terms, that means it was queued up and waiting for a vote on the Senate floor. So understand the picture. This was not a dead idea sitting in a drawer. This was a bill moving steadily toward the finish line, one stage at a time. The momentum was real. If you've been waiting for regulatory clarity on XRP, comment "clarity" below. I want to see how many of you have been following this all the way through. And this is where it gets stuck. This is the part the headlines glossed over. The entire bill is now hung up on one provision, Section 604. In plain English, Section 604 is a safe harbor for software developers. It is a rule that says writing blockchain code or running certain blockchain software should not automatically make you a money transmitter under the law. It sounds technical, it sounds small, but it became the pressure point. In late June, several law enforcement groups, along with an anti-trafficking alliance, raised objections to that provision, arguing it could open up loopholes. The Department of Justice pushed back, saying those concerns were not accurate. And separately, a negotiation over ethics provisions in the bill collapsed in early June. I want to be clear and fair here. I am not telling you who is right in that debate. The point for XRP holders is simpler. A bill that was cruising toward a vote suddenly hit friction from several directions at the same time. And that is exactly when the odds turned. Prediction markets. These are platforms where people bet real money on outcomes, cut the chance of passage from 74% down to 48%. One closely watched crypto research team lowered its own estimate from 75% to around 60%. The momentum that had been building for a year reversed in a matter of weeks. That is the signal. The bill is not dead, but it is no longer safe. Now here's the piece that ties it all together, and it is the part that matters most. There is a clock. Every year, Congress breaks for an August recess, and analysts who track this bill closely say it realistically needs to clear the Senate by the end of July, ideally sooner. The warning is direct. If it does not pass before that recess, its chances drop off sharply. Political attention shifts, momentum fades, and the bill risks slipping all the way into 2027. So here are the two scenarios, honestly, both sides. The bullish case. The Senate works out a compromise on Section 604, the bill passes before the recess, and XRP finally gets a permanent federal framework as a CFTC-regulated commodity. That is the kind of structural catalyst that can change how institutions look at XRP, not for a day, but for years. The bearish case. The friction holds. The deadline passes. The catalyst gets pushed into next year, and XRP keeps waiting, with the same regulatory question mark hanging over it that has been there all along. This does not guarantee anything in either direction, but notice the shape of it. The upside is a lasting change in XRP's legal standing. The downside is a delay. Those are not equal outcomes, and that is worth sitting with. So what do you actually watch from here? 3 things. First, Section 604 itself. This is the bottleneck. Watch for any sign that senators are reaching a compromise on that specific provision. If that one knot loosens, the whole bill can move. Second, the calendar. The end of July, before the August recess, is the deadline that matters. Every week that passes without a floor vote raises the pressure. Third, mark July 17th. There is a House Financial Services field hearing scheduled in New York that day, which also happens to be 1 year to the day since the House first passed this bill. A hearing like that signals lawmakers are still engaged, and the tone coming out of it can move sentiment. And as a real-time gauge through all of this, keep an eye on those prediction market odds. When the number moves, something behind the scenes has changed. So let's bring it all together. While everyone is watching XRP sit on $1, the real story is not on the chart. It is in the Senate. The single biggest catalyst that could re-rate XRP is a vote. And that vote is stuck on one technical provision, with a hard deadline closing in. It is not dead, but it is not safe. It went from a 74% chance to a coin flip in a matter of weeks, and the next stretch of the calendar decides whether XRP gets the regulatory clarity it has been waiting years for, or whether it waits longer. That is the structure underneath the noise. The people who understand it are watching Washington right now, not just the candles. If this is the kind of breakdown that helps you cut through the noise and see what actually moves XRP, subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next update on this bill. No hype, no panic, just the structure, every single video. And if you want the full picture of why XRP is under pressure right now, even with all of this in play, watch the video on screen next. This is XRP Verified. Stay patient, stay rational, and as always, we don't wait for the future, we plan for it.